Okay, starts recording. Let's give it a couple seconds until. Okay, Matt. So this time we're going to be recording it. And before we get started, guys, this is going to be recorded because last week we got this strike from YouTube. Exactly what happened, I just don't know. And we've been talking about this with. My best guess is that we talked about a couple of issues that combined, even though we were not trying to say something that was specifically against the guidelines of YouTube, we see how, or at least I see how, in a matter of like 30 seconds, 60 seconds, or whatever the software, the censorship software it is, I see how we were talking about something, and then with the other topic connected, it may have been perceived like that by the censorship software. We've been talking, even right now, we're talking about, other platforms. In Rumble, you have the Modern Survivalist as well. We'll see how it goes from here. We are in uncharted waters in terms of censorship. This censorship software can be quickly adapted to pretty much any keyword that from now on they just dislike, and they can pretty much wipe out any free speech that they feel like doing because they have the platform and then they manage it whatever way they want. So from now, we'll just try to continue. I've had this channel for almost 10 years, and it's with its ups and downs, but fortunately, we've been able to communicate with you folks through it, and fingers crossed we can continue doing it, but we have to prepare for the other alternative as well. So, Matt, what do you think about all of this?
Well, a couple of thoughts, plenty of thoughts. It used to be that if there were so many people all doing something at the same time that the security services couldn't keep up, they would just be overwhelmed. That's no longer the case.
Yeah.
Because now what happens is speech is converted to text in real time. No humans are involved. It's just programmed.
Right.
And then the text is scanned for forbidden words and phrases.
Right.
And I think that we probably put a few of the forbidden phrases together in like that time period. If you talk about too many people on the third planet from the sun,
yeah,
and then you talk about something that I would say, instead of saying a disease vacation, instead of
I've been talking about this all year, but what I think is that. What I think that happened is that when we jump to the second topic, that I don't even want to mention it because since what happened last time, but we were not saying what the phrase that YouTube is specifically forbidding in like one of the conspiracy theories or whatever it is. We were not saying that, but I assume that since we jumped from one topic to the next and it connected those two words, it may have seemed that way. I guess
Also, there is a possibility that, the algorithms, they can be dialed up and dialed down, and that's where a human hand can intervene to say, at a 60% suspicious level, we'll let it go.
Yeah.
But if they're cracking down and doing these purges, they can say, now only at a 40% match level, we're going to kick you off. So, but everything's automatic, but a human being can dial the algorithm. Can change some of the coefficients in the formula.
Yeah.
And there you go. I mean, if for sure, this has been a week of great tests, because Absolutely. We have seen that big tech is more powerful than the president of the United States. There's no question.
They banned him from Twitter, right? They
ban him. He doesn't ban them. They ban him.
Ban him. Yeah.
Right. So big tech is more powerful than a president. And for the moment, they've put Biden in control, but some of the cabinet and cabinet assistants are people who are on the board of Google and Facebook and Twitter. Yeah. So they're going to be cooperating fully. They're not right now. The Biden and Democrat side, they're not concerned about censorship. They're loving it because for the moment they get their message and the conservatives don't. But what we've really learned is that they're more powerful than any president.
Yes.
The president doesn't get to determine what he says anymore. And he can't even announce, I'm going to have a speech from the Oval Office and have it covered by national networks. They can just say, no, we're not covering it. president of the United States. So clearly, the political power is now subservient to the tech power.
And the mainstream media, it's shameful. The way they behave this week, it's disgusting.
Yeah, and they're all very cozy with the Chi-Coms, the CCP. You know, we've seen in Epic Times and some other good papers that there are a lot of these media people. They go to these CCP funded, dinners and speeches where you're going to have your expenses paid, a great time to listen to Chinese communist propaganda.
Yeah.
And they don't see a conflict in that. To me, the CCP is the same as the National Socialist Party of Germany. Again, trying to avoid the hot button words. That the robots don't like. But the National Socialists of Germany, the Chinese are every bit as evil. And our media is in bed with them.
They have you read about the good citizen, bad citizen software that they're running? They have, this isn't any conspiracy theory. This is from France 24 News. They have software that detects people's faces, and they have a good citizen, bad citizen rating. So if you jaywalk, your rating drops. If you buy cigarettes, if you buy alcohol, if you criticize online the party, all of that makes your rating drop. Now, if you do the opposite, it starts going up, and it affects, discounts when traveling. Your life is basically ruined, and you're continuously scanned through their software on facial recognition.
And we're no different. They might not be doing as much doing it on the basis of facial recognition, but they can do it on the basis of what websites you visit, what type of products you're buying. If you're visiting, rightist websites and you're purchasing bang sticks and things like that, then the stuff that uses black powder and lead projectiles. Don't want to get the robots mad at me today.
Don't worry.
They can automatically start marking you down, and we've seen, if you look at how right now, for sure, big tech is more, and I include the media as part of this whole operation. Media and big tech is more powerful than the president of the United States.
Yeah.
So if you make that as a parallel to what they can do to any citizen, it's no longer the case where you're good unless, say, the IRS comes after you to give you a tax exam, or the FBI is looking into your past for some crime you might have committed 20 years ago. That's bad enough. But now we've seen with what happened with Trump, there's nothing to stop them from doing this to anybody. They can take off your Patreon, your Spotify. Yeah. They can nuke any way for you to monetize a living. Yeah. They're companies that sell Trump gear. They're gone. They're nuked. So they can tie people into a web where people are just afraid to say anything. It's basically turning us into like East Germany or Soviet Union. Yeah. And it's being done by private means. And, a century ago, more than a century ago, Teddy Roosevelt broke up the trusts. And it's more than just a monopoly. If, for example, the steel company and the oil company are cooperating, to make sure nobody can get a corner in anywhere. This is like Facebook, Twitter, and Google, which is YouTube, all cooperating to deplatform somebody at the same time so that he's cast adrift with no chance to get back in and have a voice at all. And the difference is that in the turn of the 20th century, Teddy Roosevelt was able to harness public opinion and break up the trusts. But right now, the equivalent would be that Standard Oil and Carnegie Steel had Roosevelt thrown out of office, had him unable to get to the newspaper. So terrible. It's much worse than the robber barons of the early 20th century, because they've got enough power to silence a president and put any individual out of business. If you didn't have to use a railroad, you didn't have to pay the monopoly price. All that the railroad barons wanted to do is make sure you paid their high fee on the railroad. But now they're actually demanding what you think, or how you express yourself. They're going to dial your citizenship down based on your politics. And they're more powerful than the president. So there's not going to be any antitrust law coming forward, because the Democrats love it. It works for them.
I was explaining my kids that this is no different from when in Nazi Germany they burned books. It's the equivalent, but in the digital era. You just get rid of whatever you don't like, and it's amazing how fast this developed in just a few days. We talked about how fast it would happen and how it would surprise people in previous live streams, and it's exactly how it went down. People are shell shocked. They cannot believe that all of this went down this fast. Now, you were in D.C. What can you tell us? What can you tell us from what you saw over there?
I drove up from Florida with a few friends, and we got there by the metro, and we walked to near the Washington Monument. And the Washington Monument is on a little hill, but it's enough of a hill that you can see down to the west are the steps of the Lincoln Memorial.
Yeah.
And about a mile to the east is the west side of the Capitol. And then straight to the north is the White House, which is where Trump was speaking to the people in that area in between called the Ellipse. But it was so jammed with people down closer to the White House that we stayed up about 100 meters from the Washington Monument, where we could watch everything. I mean, we had binoculars. Right. They have some Jumbotron screens, so you can hear what's being said and see watch on the Jumbotron. So there's no point in moving our little camp down to where there was no room to do anything.
Any idea how much people were there? Any estimation?
I haven't. The Park Service quit more than 10 or 15 years ago trying to give estimates, because the estimates always became political with everybody attacking them. So the only way to do it is to use aerial shots and compare it to compare the population density. Like in your book, you have those methods of counting the people in a grid and multiplying it and so forth. I would say, minimum 100,000 to a couple 100,000.
Could be.
But I'm not really expert at that. But it was a massive people. But the thing that, and it was cold. It was really cold. So the people there were very dedicated, because the ground was wet. Depending on what you're wearing, you were pretty miserable. Yeah. And the wind was really blowing. It was cold and raw, just above frost, and wind blowing hard pretty much the whole time. But Trump spoke last. He started speaking at maybe 11:20 or so. And he spoke for an hour and a half or hour and 20 minutes. So that would put it to 12:30, 1:45. And when his speech was over, we were going to walk to the Capitol to see what was going on there, because at 1 p.m. was going to be the beginning of the process of reading the votes state by state. And if there was going to be any debate and so forth, that was when it was going to happen, when there were objections to Arizona and then Pennsylvania and other states that were contested. But when Trump finished and we turned to the east to walk it's about a mile, I would say, 1.25 miles. That's called the National Mall. It's maybe 200 meters wide from north to south, and maybe a 1.25 miles, something like that, from the Washington Monument to the Capitol. A straight line, just grass. Yeah. With walkways on the side. And by the time we were halfway across the mall, well, even when we left, there were people already all over the Capitol. And by the time we were halfway, and remember, because we were at the Washington Monument, we had a head start on the people that were in the Ellipse down near the White House. Because we were already on the mall. All we had to do was walk straight east. We didn't have to do a dog leg from the mosh pit, which was the speech itself. Well, when we were walking, it was apparent that there had already been people planning to bum rush the Capitol, because there were people already all over the steps. Yeah. And pretty soon you could see with our with binoculars and even the naked eye, that people were in denied areas, that there are high balconies and porticos and things on second and third levels where banners were being hung out. So you knew that it had to have been scaled, that they weren't given permission to like climb to a third floor balcony and hang out a Trump flag or anything like that. So we knew that the building was sort of under direct, I don't want to use words like assault or attack, but they were moving right on to the Capitol.
Yeah.
And this was before Trump even finished speaking. So blaming Trump for incitement, like he got his crowd whipped up and then they ran down. It's like more than a mile in cold weather. So you're talking when from the end of the speech, it's like another 15 or 20 minutes before anybody can walk from who was watching Trump.
They were already there.
They were already there.
Right.
That's right. So they already had a plan. And maybe some people just said, I don't care what Trump is going to say. I want to be here where the vote is. I can understand that. Like that's where the action will be all afternoon. I want to be up close. I don't want to, if I leave one and come to the other, then I'll be way in the back instead of up front. So I can understand that. But to me, this was a classic fourth generation warfare buffalo jump. And the left, still regrettably, the left understands us way better in many regards in terms of like how to manipulate opinion and so forth. 4G warfare has to do with, morale and propaganda and establishing a narrative. And they understood that there would be, very, very patriotic but angry Trump supporters at the Capitol. And all it would take is some agent provocateurs to go inside.
It was a powder keg already, and all it needed was a little spot. And there's also footage of what I assume would be like-minded people in the police force that were actually, I don't know if waving them in, but if not, just not resisting much at all. Like, okay, you push me a little bit.
So big. This building is so big.
Right.
If you're looking at one side, you're only looking at less than 1/3 of the frontage of it, because the other side is just as big and the ends are big. And it's not like a perfect rectangle. There are all kind of 90-degree angles and many entrances. So in one corner of the building, it might have been like a physical fight to like push past police. But in another area, the police might have been inviting them in. So you can't paint with the same brush, because from one side of the building, you don't know what's happening at the other side of the building. Maybe the police do because they're on the same radio net, but maybe the orders are misinterpreted or the orders change from minute to minute. At one minute they may have said, let them in, don't make but the main thing to me is that is the indictment of this being a planned buffalo jump, is when you're going to have 100,000 angry people in town, just a mile away. They have these interconnecting 8-foot steel panels, like the kind that they put around the Portland courthouse and Kenosha, Wisconsin courthouse. They can put miles of them around a convention. When they're having the political convention, they can literally bring in miles of them and make like a mini Berlin Wall overnight. A flatbed truck comes in and has maybe 50 or 80 of these big panels, and just one truck after another drops them off. They're hooked together, linked together, and for the Capitol, it would just take a couple, 500 or so of these panels. I'm just guesstimating, but not many. And for a State of the Union address and lots of other events or demonstrations, they just put the 8-foot fence around it automatically. So for them they intentionally did not request extra police help, which was offered by like Maryland and Virginia and the National Guard. They said, no thanks, we've got it. And then they did not put up the 8-foot riot fencing. All they had up were the bicycle rack fencing. The bicycle rack style fencing that's like, waist high is just really the honor system. That's just to tell you on this side is police, on that side is the protest.
Not much of a physical stopper.
If people want to rush it, they can just knock it over, pick up pieces and delink it because they just hook together with a pin.
And people were pissed. People were upset. And when you have these numbers of people, when you have 100,000, 200,000, it is as obvious as I could possibly think of. Could you have someone that is more upset than the guy next to him? Absolutely. Could you have like someone from Antifa looking at, okay, I'll start crap and blame it on these guys? You can have whatever in that number of people. It could be anything in there.
There's credible reports about Antifa being, coming in on buses and so forth. And there are videos of eyewitnesses that are saying, I was paid to go there. I don't, I'm not really political. I'm just was paid to go in and cause trouble. But and there was a video of the guy who's trying to break an exterior window up on a balcony.
That guy was all over They show that guy all the time. They show that guy.
He's got a hammer, and he's using a hammer, which is an Antifa profile. I don't know what Trump person brings a hammer to a rally. Like a hammer is for breaking like bank windows, and he's got a black bandana on and wearing all black. So I think that he's at least one agent provocateur. And then he's wearing
the typical Antifa uniform of all black and going with a hammer and smashing crap.
The guy that's called the Q shaman.
Yeah.
Who's this idiot with the tattoos that goes bare chested with like the Viking horns.
Yeah.
I was on InfoWars with Alex Jones on Friday. And the segment that's talking about the Q shaman at the Capitol has like something like 700,000 views, which is a lot, for on banned.video. InfoWars, because they got banned from YouTube and regular channels like more than a year ago.
Yeah. They
supported their own video platform. So banned.video, now hopefully it's not like on Amazon servers or something the way Parler is.
Right.
But InfoWars banned.video, that video with the Q shaman has like, I don't know, 700,000-800,000 views. But this guy is saying one of the Trump rallies, he has a sign that says Q sent me. And the whole Q phenomenon is really, it's sad to me because good people really want to believe it. Okay.
Yeah. That's also true.
But it's a very classic psyop where it might have started as just a hoax by one or a small group of individuals. It was absolutely a hoax from the beginning. There's no like military intelligence, white hats, behind the scenes going to ride to the rescue. Yeah. That's just a way of getting patriots to think, no problem. Trump is always going to pull a rabbit out of the hat.
Yeah.
That's just a psyop. But
man, for how long had we had people saying during our live streams that Trump has SEAL Team 6 waiting for orders just
and there's
right
a gun
now.
Battle in Frankfurt. And Gina Haspel has been shot at the gunfight and she's in Gitmo.
So all the conspiracy stuff has been going on for months.
Even going back to the beginning of Trump, when Jeff Sessions, the most useless attorney general, nice guy, but a useless attorney general who recused himself from Russia, putting enemies of Trump in charge of it. People were calling him Stealth Jeff. They were saying, don't worry, Q tells us that Jeff Sessions is really just rope-a-doping everybody with the sleepy hound dog face. He's really a tiger. Yeah. That was crap. Then Matt, it was Barr and Durham. Durham is going to drop the hammer. It was all crap to make us just quit and go home.
But this is one thing, and you know this as well as I do, because you've been in the survival prepper community, forever. This always is floating around. The conspiracy theories of the most wackiest nature. There's at one time there was this thing about 10 suitcase nukes floating around that they're going to be detonated, and so some people live for this. And they just spread it.
And there's nothing new about like a secret newsletter, for example, being co-opted by security services. Long before the internet, if it was somebody printing out anti-government pamphlets behind the Iron Curtain somewhere. Yeah. All right. When they catch this guy, they don't like hang him and have a television crew there breaking up his secret printing press.
Yeah.
No way. It's way too useful to not even let anybody know he was arrested and keep making the pamphlets. That way you can feed disinformation to what the people that think they're getting anti-government, like partisan briefings. And then you can just feed them anything you want and have them out themselves. You can, for example, say, we're having a secret meeting of the Patriot Brothers in the forest at midnight.
And you show up.
And then when 100 show up, okay, 50 of them are KGB officers, and they don't even arrest them.
Yeah.
They tell the 50 patriots that are suckered, now go out and each get 10 more patriots, and then next week we'll meet again. Then they arrest 1,000 patriots.
And these days, with cell phones, they don't even have to bother much. They just track your cell phone, and they know who's gathering there and who's next to who and who was at that specific moment. And these days it's terrible the way in which they can.
It's all done, and it can all be done by computer too. And I go back at the beginning of the whole COVID thing, when there was concern about these super spreader events. I'm only mentioning this because it's the best video I've seen. It was spring break, like in March in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Yeah. And they can put a box around an area like a mile by a tenth of a mile of all the people on the beach where it's really crowded, and put a box around it, and then basically say, track all these cell phones over time. And then you can see, like, 1 hour later, 1 day later, 1 week later, where all these people have gone across the country. Yeah. It was in the context of it being
your cell phone is your cell phone is constantly tracking you. I guess anyone knows this by now, but you have
and for example, anybody that's been to Trump rallies, okay, somebody can type into the computer, anybody who has been to 2 Trump rallies and is now going to 2 gun stores this month.
Yeah. No.
And out comes the names, or has been to 2 Trump rallies and Washington, D.C., and is now communicating on the internet on this, sketchy right-wing website.
Yeah.
Boom, here comes all the pictures and faces. We've got the same technology that China does. We're just doing it a little differently because we have to still pretend we're a free country. Yeah. But behind it, it's all just, and the technology today would make it, Hitler could never dream of the power of knowing exactly who his enemies are.
Yeah.
And it's even, in another way, more efficient because it's so efficient at finding exactly who the enemies of the state are. It means you don't have to round up by the thousands, hoping to catch the 100. You can just get the 100, and then nobody knows it.
You can target specifically who you want. I'll send you the video from the Chinese stuff. It's amazing. And not only that, they're not like talking about it like something sinister or creepy. They actually interviewing a Chinese woman that she's happy about being a good citizen because she gets discounts and she travels, for half the fare, and she gets, some free stuff or whatever. But it's incredible what happens on the other side. What happens if they consider you a bad citizen because you talk poorly about the party, about the Communist Party? You socialize online with people or visit websites that are not, in a positive view of the party. Even just jaywalking, they track you and they know if you jaywalked, and that drops your rating.
Well, now we're going to have a completely one-party federal government.
Yeah.
And so there's no doubt we're going to have national health care is going to be pushed through. And I've been thinking for a long time, the worst thing about national single payer health care, it's not that it will be less efficient. It's not that the lines will be forever. It's not that you'll be in a line behind 100 illegal aliens. Yeah. That's all bad, but that's not the worst part. The worst part is it as a social control mechanism.
Yeah.
If they can correlate your social media life and posts and give you a bad comrade score, and you're waiting for a hip replacement, and suddenly you go from number 80 on the list to number 8 million, and your operation date goes from next week to 5 years from now.
Yeah.
Who's going to say anything about the government on social media? You're just going to be like a good Soviet citizen and keep your mouth shut. because you're afraid you won't get the medicine that your mother needs or your kid needs.
It's scary. If you think about the potential and the things that they can get away with this kind of technology, it is. And as you were just saying, the new government, man, people are gonna be so surprised. But what happens with these folks?
But there's going to be resistance, and I because we're not doing live chat, I ask people to send in questions, which I have a list of here. And I also like to say, since there's no live chat, once this video is posted on YouTube or Rumble or BitChute, wherever it winds up, I'll go there and I'll read the questions, okay? And I'll answer questions. If you have questions following this, we'll try to answer the questions like on YouTube.
Awesome.
So there's a pretty famous YouTuber named Bill Whittle, Whittle. Very intense guy, very smart guy. And this first question relates to what he's been proposing. So the first question is like, can we build back from the grassroots up and take our political system back? Because it's hopeless now to try to appeal to the senators, or forget it. The Republicans are almost as bad as the Democrats, and they've sold out. They just want to go back to being the loyal opposition, the happy losers. They're not. That's why they didn't even really contest the stolen election. They know it was stolen. They didn't contest it because they just want to get back to life as normal, and they don't mind being the loser team, the happy loser team. They don't mind. But can you build back from the grassroots? Could you go to your local political level and get in at the very bottom? Maybe, but I think Bill Whittle is way too optimistic, thinking that that's a way to do it. He says, our problem is we've been waiting for the hero from the top to save us.
Yeah.
It has to be grassroots from the bottom. And I wouldn't discourage anybody from doing it, but I think we're way beyond that. I look at this like tectonic plates that have been just getting ready for an earthquake or a volcano. It's Vesuvius and there's fire coming out of the top. And, it's been 800 years since a big eruption. That's what I see this now as like an inevitable conflict.
Yeah.
We've gone too far to use the normal safety mechanisms to get the pressure down. And now with them cracking down on social media, what this does is put a lid on the pressure cooker and turn the heat up, because social media, people arguing freely on Twitter and
it's
Facebook.
A release valve for some people. It's a release valve. It's a way of, okay, someone understands me, someone gets me. I can at least vent with someone online.
Yeah, and it's still a free country because I still have free speech.
Yeah.
When you're free, for an American, having your free speech taken away really tells you it's not a free country. Having your election stolen in front of your face and then being gaslighted and told you didn't see what you saw, this tells you it's not a free country. And one of the first things they're going to do is come after guns. I would not be surprised, and I'm not necessarily saying it'll be a false flag event, but in terms of the American experience, it's a lot easier to arrange, a lot of bang bang than say an IED type of a situation.
I think they already have in mind that they're going to be. I think they're just going to be going for it because they've been promising this. They've been promising that they would do it. So now they're going to be saying, "Hey, we said we would be doing this. Now we're here. Now we're going to be doing it."
Yeah, and these are absolute red lines for a lot of Americans. The CW, I thought I would say today, the city water problem, the CW2 problem.
Yeah.
Don't want to make the robots angry, but it's going to blow up when they say you must register your weapons.
You do not have to comply. You just do not comply. I think that's the only sane strategy for something outrageous like this.
But will say, but now we've seen that they have a leverage that's beyond sending the FBI to kick down your door, the ATF. Yeah. They have a new leverage. They can say, oh, all the people on the list who the computer tells us, they can go to Amazon and see who's got what, because you just bought all these magazines.
Guys,
and
your credit card, you bought magazines, you bought a sling, you bought a holster. They know exactly what you have. Don't worry about it. They know
and
it.
then they're just going to say, this is the list of people that have it that didn't register. Well, guess what? Now you can't bank. Now your ATM card is going to be rejected. You're not going to be able, they will say that these gun criminals, which is what they'll call us, gun criminals, gun outlaws, should not be allowed to do banking business or get on an airplane or drive your car from state to state. And all of these steps are going to convince more and more Americans that there has been a coup and we're not free anymore. And we're going to have to like they say, you can vote your way in to socialism, even if it's a fake election, even a fake election, right? They'll say you voted your way in, and it was.
In Venezuela, try getting those guys out. They already own everything. They run it. You're not going to be voting your Maduro out of government, guys.
Yeah. And the most well-armed guys owe their lifestyle to supporting Maduro because they get, triple rations and they get a gun.
Yeah.
So they're not, and they have electricity in their neighborhood. So they're not going to vote against the guy that's putting them, as like a overseer or a capo.
Yeah.
In a concentration camp, they had capos, which were members of the oppressed population that would just help the Germans to oppress their own tribe, their own kinfolk.
Yeah. It's amazing. One of the things that shocked me was the way in which the mainstream media moved so as to, these are rioters, these are thugs, when it was BLM torching entire cities, those were mostly peaceful protests. Now this time they've gone with a fine comb, trying to find each one, naming and shaming, making, if they had done half of the same thing with BLM, they would have had, thousands of criminals in the news all day long. If they had done the same,
the ones that were arrested, like Andy No, NGO, Andy No in Portland and Seattle would post the pictures of like the nightly arrests, the nightly freak show of arrests. Yeah. But they're always let out the next day.
And it's not covered. It's not covered in the mainstream media. They don't mention it at all. They're not even
charged. They're arrested and then they're just released with no bail and no charge. So there's no penalty. The guys that were inside the Capitol are going to get hammered. Some of them are going to spend years in jail. They're going to be treated like it's the worst thing ever. Because it was officials, politicians, and not just some guy that owns a liquor store or a jewelry store. Nobody cares about that guy.
What about Ashley? I want to get her last name. Ashley Babbitt, was it?
Yeah.
Well, they didn't even mention her. The following day, CNN had nothing in their headlines or below the scroll. Nothing. Not a single mention of that woman.
Unarmed and she got shot in the neck from 2 meters away.
Getting shot like a dog. Completely unarmed, not attacking anyone, surrounded by police. She already had police officers that didn't feel threatened at all.
Look, we are in 4G war, and we have to be smarter than buffaloes getting stampeded off a cliff. All right. I'm also reminded of the dog that chases the car.
Yeah.
So now the car stops, and the dog is chewing on a tire, which won't do a damn thing, and the guy stops the car with a gun and shoots the dog. I mean, what are you going to do when the dog chases the car and the car stops? What's the dog going to do? Is he going to learn how to drive the car and drive it away? Is he going to throw the human out and drive the car away? He can't do it. Were those guys going to literally occupy the Capitol? I think some of them might have had a longer term plan. And these are guys that are really get hammered if they put this together, because there were several people there with big zip ties, like the biggest zip ties you can buy at Home Depot, that you can use as flex cuffs. You don't go into the Capitol with 20 big zip ties already coiled in a loop, right? Like a hand-sized loop hanging on your belt. You're doing that because you're planning to take prisoners or hostages. And I don't know what weapons they might have had, if any, maybe just blade-edged weapons or something, but I don't know why multiple people would be going into to the Capitol with these flex ties. If they were part of a group that was planning to take hostages, at least one of them will talk, or they'll have already recorded these guys, infiltrated them. But that's another thing. If the FBI knew from chatter about any of these types of plans, if they didn't put up the 8-foot, riot wall, the riot fence that they can put up like in a couple hours, right?
Yeah.
Even on the 6th, when they saw, oh crap, there's like way more people here than we thought, which I don't believe. I think that they can estimate this very well.
They can estimate it quite well.
Because they can look at air flight anomalies and road traffic. When you drive in an American road now, you are filmed every mile. I mean, they've got a camera every mile. And again, this is all automatic. So they can look at abnormal traffic patterns, abnormal airline and hotel reservations, and say, wow, this is going to be a big one. Let's put up the 8-foot fence just in case. It takes only a few hours, and then we take it right back down if nothing happens. But they didn't.
Yeah.
They didn't. So to me, at some level, they wanted this to happen, and they understand us better than...
But let's also be honest about something. Yes, the image of the guy breaking the window, and they've repeated that ad nauseum all day long. It's the only thing they probably have of someone breaking something there. I mean, for crying out loud, if it had been BLM, they would have torched.
Where Ashley Babbitt went through that window, you mean, in that?
No, they went from the guy on the outside with a shield or something crashing it.
He's got like a clear shield.
Yeah, they repeated that all day long. They did not show all the other guys waved in. Let's be honest, the destruction was minimal.
This is where, look, if you are in a war, the new order of battle is not that we have 12 battleships and the Japanese have 16 battleships, and it's not even that the Indians have bows and arrows and we have Spencer repeating lever actions. That's not even the order of battle now. The order of battle is who controls the media.
Yeah.
Who controls the police chief at the Capitol.
Is key,
and it's no good. An Indian that loses a battle can't say, we would have won if we'd only had Spencer repeating rifles instead of bows and arrows. Look, you had bows and arrows, okay? And you lost. There are some really good Zulu movies. The Zulus were magnificent warriors, and obviously they didn't have guns. There's a movie called Zulu, and there's a couple more about other battles, some where the British were overrun and massacred. And the Zulus did not have any firearms, but they had great tactics and disciplined fighters. So they won in spite of not having guns, okay? They lost a lot of people, but they absolutely overran the Brits. They understood the rate of fire and how long it would take ammunition to be transferred up to the front lines. As British soldiers in their fighting positions run out of ammunition, they can't get resupplied. Then they get overrun, by the Zulus with just a shield and a spear.
Yeah.
Okay. What my point is, why am I talking about Zulus and American Indians? You can't be a dumb effing buffalo and run off the cliff just because your enemy is waving a blanket. Okay?
Yeah.
Over there, Trumpists, run off the cliff. This is guaranteed fail. 100%. So now you're the dog that caught the car, and the car stops and the human gets out and shoots you because you didn't have a plan after bite the tire. Okay? Yeah. You got in the Capitol. Now you're gonna you can't complain that they're gonna loop the guy with the shield breaking the window all day. And they're not, and you can't complain if Trump said, now we're going to the Capitol peacefully.
Yeah.
Okay. And you can't complain when the media shows now we're going to the Capitol, and then the guy smashing windows.
And they overlay both images.
Even though the guy is smashing windows before Trump is finishing his speech, for example, it doesn't matter. Yep. You can't complain if you're the Indian and you thought our plan is we're just going to ride horses as fast as we can straight at the fort where they're waiting behind a wall with repeating rifles. You can't complain if you get shot out of your horse. Okay?
But a lot of people walked in there. Matt, they were even joking. The lefty commentators were joking about how people inside the Capitol. They were walking within the velvet string things. They didn't break anything. They were just walking in there. They just want to be inside. I think that
right. But you have to. The new weapon now is that looping video on mainstream media. Yeah. And if you give them ammunition,
they'll use it.
If Trump had said, now we're going to go to the Capitol, but I don't want one person to cross the Capitol perimeter road.
But how can he control out of 100,000 people? How can he control that? Maybe 2 guys start breaking a window. That's not.
But this is 4G warfare. If you make a plan for this mass rally on the 6th, and it's going to be Trump speaks at 11 at the Ellipse, a mile away from the Capitol, and they're having this critical vote to maybe delay for 10 days based on the objections to the swing states. So Trump will be there at 11. The vote is at the Capitol at 1, and they're going to march to the Capitol. This is just it's a class. It's like the Buffaloes saying, let's all go right next to the cliff and let's have a mass rally right next to a cliff. That way 1 or 2 Indians can start a fire and we're bound to run over it. We have to be smarter than that.
Yeah, but out of all those people, how can you control that there's no Antifa infiltrator like we were talking about before? How can you control that there's maybe a bunch of guys that thought, I'm going to be sitting in Nancy Pelosi's desk or whatever?
You have to anticipate the Buffalo jump. You have to anticipate. You have to win 4G war, you have to say, what are our enemies going to do in this situation? If I was the general of Antifa, I would do exactly what they did on Wednesday.
Yeah.
If I was the general of Antifa, it was a perfect day for them. And you can't say, but they were let into some doors, or there was Antifa infiltrators. It doesn't matter. All that matters is that afterwards, the voting to stop the automatic certification of Biden was killed. When they came back that night, they just did right through to voting. So anybody that wanted the 10-day delay and an audit of the votes and all of that, what happened in the Capitol killed it. Half of the congressmen and senators that said they were going to object backed away.
But do you think they would have done it if they hadn't gotten in? Do you think they would have opposed it? I think they were planning on not going along with it all along, no matter what happened.
Yes, but the optics of it would have been great speeches by Ted Cruz. Many more people watching this on TV and hearing about the fraud that happened in Georgia and in Pennsylvania. Instead, it turned into
a freak show.
Maniac. Trumpists are maniacs. Let's vote for Biden as fast as we can. So they changed the optics. I don't think that the audit would have even gone through. No. But it would have been registering our objection to the fraudulent election, but we're still the good guys.
Yeah.
Right? Instead, we're the maniacs. And I'm not saying we're maniacs. I'm
saying that's my point. That's my point. They make out of a guy breaking a window and a couple of desks turnover, they make it as if they torched the building when Antifa has been torching buildings and cities for all year long. And they still call those peaceful protests.
For the right to complain about the media being unfair is exactly the same as the Indians that charged the fort with bows and arrows complaining that it wasn't fair because the soldiers should have just used bows and arrows. Then it would have been fair. Well, the soldiers have repeating rifles and you have a bow and arrow. You're going to lose. You got to do a night tactic. You got to catch their patrol in an ambush. You know what I mean? You can't do a frontal assault. This was like the natives in Sudan doing a frontal assault on horses, waving swords.
And it's really, what would be the point? The guy that sat in Pelosi's desk or whatever, what did he achieve other than getting a stupid photograph? It achieved nothing at all.
He'll get fired and he'll get 10 years in jail. Now, the other way to look at it, and I'm anticipating a lot of questions, there are conservatives that I call accelerationists who believe that the longer we delay this civic water work, the longer that we delay it, the worse it will be for our side.
Yeah.
And if we delay it for 5 years, then the demographics are worse and there's more tyranny in place. So let's start it as soon as possible. So they are happy to blow up Trump's goodwill. They are happy to have all the conservatives banished and super angry because they want the Civil War sooner, not later. And so in a sense, the accelerationists and Antifa on Wednesday were on the same side. They both wanted it to turn into a shit show, which it did. But our side has to be smart enough to allow for Antifa agent provocateurs and right-wing accelerationists. We have to be smarter than that. If Trump is going to ask people to go to the Capitol, then there has to be some way in place, a mechanism in place, like the 8-foot barrier has to be up, presidential order. Or I'm demanding that the 8-foot barrier be up.
Yeah.
I don't want Antifa or the accelerationists to ruin what was a great day. It was a fantastic day. Everybody was so happy. It was like a patriotic Woodstock.
It was really a mostly peaceful protest.
It was 100% peaceful everywhere but at the Capitol for like that hour.
A handful of, a minimal percentage of the amount of mass of people that went there.
And anybody that would have watched that day, if this Capitol fiasco hadn't have happened, if the dumb conservative movement hadn't been stampeded off the cliff like dumb buffaloes, we got to be smarter, okay? Unless you're an accelerationist, look, if your goal is let's kick off Civil War II as fast as possible, I get it, all right? But if you love Trump and wish everybody had a good idea of that day, if you wish that today we were talking about, instead of talking about the Capitol fiasco, if we were talking today about how 200,000 people went completely happy, clean, picked up their trash, they were, singing in the airplane, going and coming, and everybody was happy. It was a positive event. That's what we would be talking about. But we had our Woodstock right there next to the Buffalo Cliff, and we had no provision for our enemies stampeding part of us off that cliff, and that's all the camera will show. And my wife hates this analogy, but if you have a wedding that takes place for 4 hours, a great big fancy outdoor wedding, okay? And everybody's happy, the band is great, the cake was fantastic, everything is the dancing, the band is best ever, perfect day, perfect weather. And then one of your crazy uncles gets up on the banquet table and takes a crap in the
shouting.
Right. The only thing that anybody will remember is the crazy took a crap in the punch bowl. And it blows the whole day up.
I feel sorry for this woman that was shot like that. I think have you seen the footage of how that went down? It's incredible how
bleeding out while they did. I don't know if they could have helped her, and the angles on the ground aren't always that good, but being shot in the neck is, you can't put a tourniquet here.
She never saw him. She was trying to go through that door because someone had broken the little window from the door, and she was a small girl and tried to go through it. The guy just popped from the side, shot her once, and that was
it. Not only could there have been right-wing like I'm picturing the guy, he was a short guy with mostly dressed in black, and he's smashing through the window on the right side of the double doors.
Yeah.
She
was upset. She was angry. She was angry. She was pissed.
She's a veteran who's super patriotic Trump supporter. I get it. But the guy who's breaking the window, you notice he didn't climb through it.
No, that's true.
He didn't climb through it. He's setting somebody else up for the bullet. Now, I wouldn't doubt if that guy was A, a member of Antifa, B, a right-wing accelerationist, or C, a confidential informant of the FBI that is like undercover with a right-wing group, okay? Like the agitator at the right-wing group that eggs him on to go into the building, and he has to lead the way in destruction.
Could be anything. Unless you actually have the guy's face and get it proper ID'd.
He's very clearly, they know who he is. I mean, he was right there. They had like 4 or 5 guys in black tactical gear with rifles coming right up behind them. They know who everybody there is. They've got so much video from there. But my point is, if you're going to go into a 4G civic waterwork and You don't want to lose. You cannot use Indian bow and arrow tactics against machine guns. Okay?
Yeah.
That's what we did on Wednesday. In terms of 4G warfare, we were as naive and stupid and foolish as the Sudanese on fancy Arabian horses waving swords charging at British Maxim guns.
Yeah.
You know, you can't afterwards say, we would have won if those British only hadn't used those Maxim guns. Yeah, but they did have them and they did use them. And you knew they had them. You thought that Allah would it was like the Lakota Sioux doing the ghost dance at Wounded Knee. They thought that if they got in the trance, the bullets would go through them. It didn't work. You know,
the guys that think that they don't need to aim. They don't use the sights because they don't need to aim because Allah is going to be guiding the bullet.
But especially if it's just like such a disjoint of tactics where you have people riding horses waving swords against Maxim guns, dug in positions with Maxim guns. And that doesn't mean that the Maxim gun always wins. You have to follow their supply train and ambush their logistics train. You know, you just can't use the tactics you want to use. Let's go to the Capitol and make them pissed was a doomed tactic.
Or idea.
Totally doomed. And it's really just pulling the pin on the grenade and holding it to your face. I'll show them. I'm going to blow my head off with a grenade. That'll really show them. Then we'll know how angry you are when I blow myself up with a grenade.
Yeah.
We got to be smarter about this. You got to win all of these little battles and don't lose these big ones like Wednesday, which was a total disaster and loss.
Yeah, it was an awful. I mean, if that had been avoided, I still think that, you know, as you're saying, you cannot expect anything from the left stream media, but it still pisses me off because
you can expect from the left stream media. Look, this is the new order of battle. You don't count in 4G warfare. You're not counting airplanes and tanks. You're counting network media, and you're counting, you know, bribed politicians and corrupt judges. That's who you're counting. And you can count on the left-wing media. You can count on them to splice a clip of Trump saying, now let's go to the Capitol with a guy smashing a window. You can count on that.
You know, calling everyone there domestic terrorists because a bunch of guys, one broke a window and God knows what else. Now everyone is a white supremacist and domestic terrorists. I mean, it is so... They're instigating this. They want this to go down.
From the Antifa point of view, from Bill Ayers, who is like a senior member of all of this, going back to the Weather Underground, and Bob Avakian, leader of Revcom.us, which is like a real organization behind BLM and Antifa and other front groups. He doesn't do anything that'll get him put on the FBI radar. He just has a website, right? But he's the theoretician for BLM and Antifa, but he uses Revcom as a cutout so that he's not directly indicted. But Bob Avakian and Bill Ayers and Angela Davis and these old 60s commies, believe me, they have been popping champagne since Wednesday.
Oh, they love this. They love this.
This was a spectacular victory for them. And
I think
we gave it to them running straight into their ambush.
I think there's also, you know what? It's becoming evident that even within the lines of law enforcement, you're going to be having like 60-70% of cops that are pro-Trump, pro-conservative. And maybe that guy was, you know, okay, you push me a little, you go through and you go in there and, you know, I'm on your side and we take the selfie and we go thumbs up, both of us, and we wink. And then you also have the guy in there that is completely the opposite. And he is within the law enforcement or Capitol Police or whatever is security detail he is in, that he's on the other side. And he's just waiting for a Trump supporter to just walk that line, cross that line, and now I'm going to be popping you. You know.
And there's one more factor. So far we've got you know,
one side, the other. Yeah.
We have Antifa agent provocateurs and some paid guys that are just told to go in and cause trouble. Then we've got right-wing accelerationists that want to get the boogaloo on as fast as possible. Yeah. And we have possibly some FBI agent provocateurs that have been like embedded with right-wing groups and are trying to make them look bad by getting them to do something terrible. But there's another factor in a 2021 time frame, are social media whores.
Yeah.
The Buffalo guy,
Yeah.
and I encourage people to
Yeah.
go to band.video and watch the shaman, the Q shaman video, because he to me is, well, he's a social media whore. Okay.
Yeah.
When we interview him about his beliefs about Q, it's obvious he's either a performance actor or he's insane, because he's talking about the geomagnetic ley lines of the earth. Well, how do you know this comes from military intelligence? Okay. You saying Q sent you. How do you know that this really came from military intelligence? He starts talking about the magnetic ley lines that converge on Washington, D.C. So either he's insane or a paid or a performance artist.
Could be either one. We just don't know. And
but he loves being on the media. He loves being. See, he doesn't just go to a Trump rally. He goes to a Trump rally to become, one of the pictures in the Daily Mail article.
He wants to be the guy on the cover of Time magazine.
And another one is the podium guy. He's like a real handsome guy with like long blonde hair, like about 35 years old, like movie star handsome dude, right?
Yeah.
And he's got the podium. He's like carrying the podium around with a big grin. He's another guy that is a social media whore. He's an attention whore. So for him, a victory is like the shaman with the horns, is getting your picture in the Daily Mail, when they do those like 50 pictures of a demonstration.
Yeah.
You want you to be one of those pictures. To you, that's like, yes, ecstasy.
I get followers. At the end, it's also money, because they get followers. They get time somewhere. They get gigs. So maybe it's a great deal for them.
And then you're going to have maybe 5 or 10 years to think about it in jail, because they're going to get, unlike the Portland rioters that like burning down businesses, they're going to get the book thrown at them.
Yeah.
And then they're going to have time to think about it. And I'm not happy about anybody going to jail out of this. And the agent provocateurs, they'll probably get a special deal, and they'll be, on the street as a reward, because they're like, their job is to, they're getting a slap on the wrist. But the actual Trump supporters, and aside from the legal process, all these people are getting fired from their jobs. Yeah. Which means that they might have had some cops went and they've got 2 more years to a pension. That just blew up.
Fired.
And you're fired, no pension. So,
but that was for those that went into the Capitol.
No. Now they're just going through pictures of anybody there.
Anyone in the demonstration, it just gets.
They're getting doxxed because they find out these people where they work, and they get them fired from their work.
So even if they didn't actually break any law, they didn't go into
That's right. They're getting fired just for being there.
That's amazing.
So and
that's what's coming, guys. That's what's coming. They see associated, and you get fired.
We've always said there won't be a shooting civil war while everybody is comfortable and happy, and the sofa is soft and the refrigerator is full and Netflix is on the big screen. But when people are like getting their job lost because of the COVID restrictions, and people are getting fired because they went to a Trump rally, this is going to lead to a level of bitterness that, I can definitely see now that tech has taken sides. It's not just Republicans versus Democrats for sure. Tech has taken a side, and they are on the side of the CCP and tyranny and leftism, communism in general. Now, the very tops of these tech empires, they've got security like Blackwater level security, and
Mark Zuckerberg is not worried at all.
No, but the people that work for him, instead of like being doxxed to lose your job, it's going to be like Michael Douglas in the movie Falling Down. People are going to go postal just because they feel like I've got nothing to lose. I've lost my house.
There's people that are going to be snapping for sure. People are going to be snapping as this continues to escalate. If you get fired for going to and not breaking any laws, you just actually peacefully protested, and you get fired over that. How is that not going to be pissing you off? And
remember too, this guy in Nashville kind of ties together. his target was the big AT&T server building. I don't know for sure, but that people have said the reason it's like right next to the river in Nashville is that they have to have like massive cooling pipes running through the building.
Right.
And because these servers are like just stacked for, built floor on top of floor of servers, super hot, and they take like a huge cooling system. So the bomb just shaking the building breaks enough of these pipes and things like that it overheats and other damage is caused. That's why it led to like airplane flights not working, and because the cloud, when they're computing at the airport, very little of the computing is maybe done at the airport.
Right,
it's done in the cloud. Well, that
all
building
servers.
is the cloud. When you talk about the cloud, that building is your regional cloud. And they just nailed the guy with the RV. We still don't know what kind of explosive he created, but the guy didn't go after a political target. You see, he went after tech.
Yeah.
His target was tech. So part of his rationale, I mean, he was like a lonely guy. He gave his house away to somebody he barely knew.
What happened? His mother died, or some relative had died recently, if I remember right.
Yeah, he's a lost soul in the world with all, practically no relatives, no friends, no social life. And his version of revenge against the machine is striking at this big AT&T server, which also people believe is like the NSA. The NSA just runs part of that building, or maybe runs all of that building. That they need to. They have a way to siphon off the NSA product from the entire product, going through this big server, farm. But if other people are going to get the idea from him, why bother going after some lowly politician? If you want to hit the machine, do what the guy in Nashville did. I think part of his message was, this is the real target. And of course, it's like a tech Luddite in the sense that if you keep doing this, like looking for fiber optic trunk lines and steal a backhoe and dig it up and just cut it, just to like cut down. If people are doing this constantly all around the country, then you can stop the information flow. Because we have lived in a high trust, high tech society. All of the maps for all of these things like natural gas pipelines and the fiber optic trunk lines, they're all mapped out so that you don't accidentally hit it when you're doing a construction project.
Right.
So where all of this is, you just turn it around from don't dig here to dig here. And that's going to be one manifestation of any kind of a CW scenario. People just saying, I'm broke. I'm on a farm, have no money for fuel, can't raise a crop this year. So I think I'll just cut the city off.
It's going to be tough, especially these following years. Who knows how this ends? But it's going to be very hard for people, especially conservatives. And we talked so many times about being in the right state. But now, if you have a business online like so many do, no matter where you are, the tech company can still get you. So they deny you access to their platforms here, there, and sure, you have others, but as we were talking about, it's not the same. It's just not the same thing.
It's very small, but you have to get on it and grow it. I quit Facebook on December 31st, even though that's like most of my exposure, because not only was I tired of being banned like every other month, but Zuckerberg, his business model is to sell our data to advertisers so that they can target directly to the people that buy certain types of products. They can pinpoint that.
That's a creepy dude. Did you see the when he was at the congressional, he had like a congressional hearing, and
with the beard and everything. Zuckerberg. He looks like an alien. He looks like the alien.
But
Dorsey looks like the beard homeless guy.
A Republican, I don't know if it was a senator, he was asking him, And he basically said that they collude with Google and every other tech company
Yep.
so as to know who they ban and who they go after. And the guy just basically admitted it. He just
That's
said,
why
yeah.
they're crushing. That's why they're crushing Parler, and the Parler incident is a real lesson too. I'm going to speak of Parler, Infowars, and Gab for a moment. After the Pittsburgh synagogue shooting, Gab was really highlighted for destruction, and they were shut down from Patreon. So it's hard to send them funds. You have to send them a check or it's hard to even help them to fund their system. So they created their own servers. Whereas Parler, which grew much bigger and faster than Gab, Parler is using hundreds of Amazon servers.
Yeah.
And Amazon just said, we're pulling the plug at midnight tonight. So you might have your right-wing garden, but it's guarded by left-wingers that can shoot you down at any time.
Yeah.
So there's a lesson there. And Infowars also got banned from YouTube and all of the polite society. So they create banned.video, and now they host their own videos. And I love it because they're 2 hours after I do something on Infowars, it's up on banned.video. They've got a really good system for that. But people ask, what are our the backups? How do we, secure access to Commo? I say get on as many of these things as you can. I mean, I've even got accounts that are dormant on Minds and MeWe. I would say get back on all of them, because you don't know which one will be shut down, and you're gonna have to flow from one to another. If YouTube cuts off your channel, you have to be ready to flow it into BitChute. And when there's both YouTube and BitChute and Rumble all working together, and YouTube's way faster, it's slicker, it's got all the chat, the questions, comment section, everything. But people will flow to BitChute if you're kicked out of YouTube. Not everybody, but a lot of great channels that have been banned from YouTube, like Red Ice, things like that. They're on BitChute, and their followership is smaller, but at least the message is still able to get out to some extent.
Yeah.
That's going to increase. We're going to have to, parallel posting is what I call it. Even when I was on Facebook, everything I posted Facebook, Gab, Parler, boom, boom, boom.
Thing is, posting on everything, man, it's a lot of time also. If you have to triple or 5 times uploading in different, it's quite a, I have
videos for uploading videos, yes, but if I'm just posting links, I'm trying, my vision, what I do is I try to amplify the messages that I think should be out there. So if I can get 10 shares and somebody else gets 4 shares and somebody else gets 100 shares, we amplify the message we want to spread, even just by copying the link to stories. So I would just have Facebook, Gab, and Parler open. Once I have the link, I just can copy it and paste it 1, 2, 3. It just takes no time. But if I'm cut off from one, people can find you on the other. But it's really about keeping the signal strong, keeping our overall signal strength up. And to do that, it's got to be on every channel.
What's the message now for people that are, we were talking last time how right after DC, it was tough. People are demoralized, rightfully so. What would be your advice for folks right now that are a little bit feeling down like that?
People, for the time being, people might want to think about backing off and being a little bit gray man. Maybe close out Twitter and Facebook. Look, don't cooperate. I know it. It's great for chatting with all your relatives, and using Facebook Marketplace is very good, but you're helping the enemy. All right. You're putting money in Zuckerberg's pocket. He just spent about $400 million to help run this fraudulent election. He gave it just to the Democrats in Democrat strongholds to get out the vote. That's all he did. And he helped get Biden in the White House with our money. He got the money from us, from data mining our personal information, and he spent it to get our enemy in the White House. So stop doing that. I would say get off Twitter, get off Facebook, and I understand YouTube. It's hard to get around YouTube, which is Google, but parallel post on BitChute, DLive, Rumble, other platforms.
Yeah, it's and also on people's everyday life, in offices and such. If you are the Trump guy in your office right now, and you're surrounded by people that were maybe on the other side of the political spectrum, or even more than that, you're going to be blacklisted from maybe the next guy is going to be getting a promotion. The next guy that's going to, it's going to be tough for people in general.
Yeah, you might have to take the gray man attitude until you see how this clears out. Now, in terms of your own neighborhood, I think it's really dumb to be antagonistic to your neighbors. Really, really, really dumb. Even if they're total a-hole commies. Because number one, if they know you're the gun guy and they already hate your guts, and at the beginning of every kind of a CW situation, there's a lot of retribution where people just snitch on their enemy neighbors, so that the death squad takes them out. And there's even false allegations. They can just say that guy is a opposite political party,
right-wing lunatic. Yeah,
right. And he's building something in his garage just to get the SWAT team there. So stay away from antagonizing your neighbors. And another reason why you don't want to antagonize your neighbors, if we get into a failure of civility situation where the unit of cohesion is the neighborhood, where because you cannot defend an American house from marauders. If 5 pickup trucks roll into your front yard, you can't defend your house. It's not defensible.
Yeah.
The only way you defend your house is to defend your whole neighborhood. And that means your whole neighborhood is going to have to be a team. And for your neighborhood to be a team, if you've read A Failure of Civility or the Civil Defense Manual, you're going to have have the policy, at least in the open at meetings. We don't talk about politics. We don't talk about religion. We don't talk about race. We don't talk about national ethnicity. All we talk about is defending our neighborhood.
This place, yeah.
That's it. And anybody that wants to bring politics into it, you can't be on the defense team. Because if you're already fighting among your neighborhood, you're doomed.
Yeah.
If the Civil War is down to the house versus house level, you've got no chance. So even if you think a couple of your neighbors are commies, when it comes,
which they may well be,
which they may well be, and maybe you'll have to do something about it privately in the future. But when it comes to just defending your neighborhood against outside attack, when they come into your neighborhood, the first thing you're going to do, if you still have electricity, is shoot the transformer, and now your neighborhood is dark. So you're going to have very limited ability to know what's going on. And now pickup trucks are driving around just going house to house. You have to keep them out of your neighborhood. To keep them out of your neighborhood, you're going to have a pre-existing defense team that can guard the entrances to the neighborhood. To do that, you can't talk politics or religion. You have to just keep it neutral. So don't get into pissing contests in your neighborhood at this point. Your commie neighbor might snitch on you to send a SWAT team to your house, and you might need your commie neighbor in the time period when you're just defending against outside attack. Later, who knows? But don't start the Civil War in your own neighborhood. Yeah. It's just not smart.
We're just saying your neighbor may well be, and that may well be the case. You just don't know who's living next door, or who's living, the opposite side or at the other end of the street. People, what are you going to be doing? Fine combing the entire subdivision to see the identity politics of each one? Not going to be likely.
Yeah, that's going to be not helpful to anybody until maybe later when the whole situation is established and it's known that your whole county is safe. Then they might be going through purging out the conservatives or purging out the left-wingers. But during the breakdown phase, when you're just trying to prevent 10 truckloads of gangbangers from just zooming into your neighborhood and attacking house by house, you have to defend a neighborhood as a neighborhood. And that means all hands on deck. Commies, righties, everybody.
Whatever it is, yeah.
Later you can deal with it, but not initially.
Man, let's go through the questions. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So what do I expect the first 100 days to look like? If nothing else happens, I think it's going to be bad enough. They're going to ram through public nationalized health care, which will be a control mechanism, to make sure nobody is arguing much about the government because you might not get your operation. They're going to pass some kind of a sedition act. In 1918, Woodrow Wilson, another Democrat who tried to start the first United Nations, he helped kick off the League of Nations, but then America didn't join. But he was a big globalist socialist. He did the Sedition Act of 1918. It was illegal to talk against going to war. The people that wanted to go in with Britain against the Germans, they just, anybody that disagreed couldn't say it.
Was illegal.
Illegal. And you also couldn't say that the draft is un-American or the draft is, not a principle of liberty. You couldn't say it. So I think that they will use the Washington fiasco as an excuse for like a super patriot act. And instead of looking outward at like ISIS and Al Qaeda, it's going to be looking inward at right wingers. So anybody that's a right winger is going to be a suspect. And that's going to be, anybody that I think that on the banned list of topics will be saying that the election was stolen. It will be considered incitement to violence.
It already is, I think.
You won't even be able to have the discussion. Just like last week, we got cut off in mid-broadcast for saying forbidden phrases that we don't even know for sure what they were.
Yeah.
But if you say that Biden is not the true president and the election was stolen,
you'll get kicked out.
And not only kicked out, but there goes your Patreon, there goes your Spotify, there goes your
everything.
Everything you've got.
Yeah. It's gonna be getting so complicated because they have such a control over everything. We already talked about tech. We already talked about the mainstream. People still watch a lot of TV. We think that there's a lot of people that are just stuck and watching, these talk shows and all that crap, and it is so one-sided. The way in which people, I was watching one the other day about from Kyle Rittenhouse. They don't even say that the last guy that he shot, he had a gun himself and was about to blow his head off. They just don't mention it. They just say that this white supremacist teenager went after these poor peaceful protesters. The guy had a gun in his hand and was about to blow his head off.
Again, I'm going to go back. I'm going to compare this Kyle Rittenhouse situation to the Washington on Wednesday.
Yeah. Don't
complain about the left-wing media being unfair. It's no different than an Indian complaining that the Cowboys have guns. Deal with the reality. You fight the war that you're in. You can't say we would have won if only we had 10 new TV networks as big as CNN. You don't. So figure out another tactic. You have to ambush the supply line. You don't attack the fort.
Oh, but what I mean is people just don't look. People just stick with whatever version of the events they saw, and they just go with that.
And this is another precursor to a CW, in that we're in separate narratives now, and the narratives continue to diverge.
Yeah,
there are people that completely believe the election was fair, and that anybody that says otherwise is a right-wing conspiracy theorist, who is believing a bunch of lies. They believe that to their core.
Yeah.
So there's no unity. There's no bringing this together. There's no knitting this back together. It's going like this until it splits like an earthquake.
Who was it that said something about bringing us together? And immediately, like on the Democrat side, they all jumped and said, we're not going to be going together with these. There's no, I think it was the Ocasio-Cortez woman that said, there's no unity with white supremacists and this and that. They're going for blood. They want to destroy the opposition.
A way that I look at this, I compare this. It could be a lot of CWs, but I'll compare it to Yugoslavia. If it's like 1987 or 1988, most people in Yugoslavia are talking about the Communist Party is doomed. It's just a matter of time. What party are you going to join? What political leader has the best chance of leading the country? And I'm looking at all of this and I'm saying, forget about the politics. The whole country's going to blow up. You got to be out of Sarajevo. Stop talking about who's going to be the mayor of Sarajevo after communism. Okay? You can talk about that after the Civil War is over, but you got to survive the Civil War. So we're still in the phase where most Americans are saying, how do we get back control of the Congress? Like Bill Whittle, we got to do a grassroots effort and come up through like the lowest level of government. And I'm saying, you got to get out of Sarajevo. This is not, before we get back to politics, if we ever do, there's going to be this split, and it's like tectonic plates.
Yeah.
It's like a giant fault line, and that energy is going to be released, like in Yugoslavia. That's what I see. Unfortunately, I don't want it. It's terrible. But the only advice I can give people is don't be on the earthquake line.
Yeah. And stock up on food. Buy food, people.
And move away from the places that it's going to be ugly.
Yeah.
This CW is going to primarily or largely be fought in the suburbs because the rural areas will be conservative largely. The urban areas will be socialist largely. Where those are clashing is the suburbs.
And if you look at it, when I lived in Northern Ireland, I learned a lot about how things went down there. Man, because at the same time you have activity going down in the downtown district. There's things happening there. There's things happening in the country, different events. Even when it got really explosive. Some of those things happened in the middle of the downtown district. They just blew up crap.
And some of these tactics you don't think about much. I highly recommend the book called Dirty War by Dylan Martin about the Troubles. And you don't have to read it like it's a Tolstoy novel, remembering every name. Just read it fast for the ideas in it about informants and false informants and agents and double and triple agents. Which are used to confuse both sides. So you don't know which agent is telling the truth, which agent is telling a lie. By the end of the Troubles, a lot of the tactics were just ringing the doorbell dressed as a postman. And then, the assistant police chief comes to the door because it's just his house and he gets shot in front of his wife. Or they would rig a bomb in a car and kidnap a guy's family and say, we've got your wife and kids at home. You're driving this car to the gate of the British base. That's it. Or your family's dead. Yeah. And that's the kind of tactics that were used at the end of the Irish Troubles, or even very similar to Nashville, just an economic, because even in a sense, the Troubles in Northern Ireland became a 4G war in that the moral and the narrative became critical to success. So they stopped doing like pub bombings and where the people were the target, and they put bombs in the London financial district at night with a warning so that to minimize or eliminate casualties. But when you do an overpressure bomb like an ANFO bomb, doesn't need to be high brisance fast type of explosive. It's just a heaving motion, but it breaks $1 billion.
No, and it was also something that when you hit the money, and you hurt that, then they want to find a solution of, okay, how do we stop this?
Fast.
Because we don't want to have all this crap. Every time we drop by the bank, I go by my little nice London office, and I'm worried about crap blowing up. I don't want to have
not only that, just the money of it, the loss, because when people don't understand, there's a thing called the City of London, and there's a 1 square mile which is not under the jurisdiction of the mayor of the London metropolitan area. The City of London is almost like a financial Hong Kong with its own rules, and these are like leading globalist financiers of the whole world, of the whole Commonwealth, especially tied very tightly to the other regional networks in Asia and other places. But when you put an Anfo bomb in there and 10,000 giant plate glass windows get broken, you just stop business that week. Okay? Nobody gets killed pretty much, but until they can put in 10,000 new windows, it's like Wall Street just stopped. So the financial hit on the British Wall Street was so great. That's when they said, you've got to negotiate an end to this.
Yeah,
as long as it was Catholics and Protestants trading pub bombs, they didn't give a damn in the financial city of London.
No, because it was not, I mean, it's not happening there. It's happening over there in Ireland, and they don't give a crap what happens over there.
And they did it, and they figured out a way to do it without, like when the IRA went to London and blew up a military parade, and they killed like horses and people in the band and spectators. This really hurts the cause of the IRA. It pisses off the British, but it also steels their resolve to never give in to the IRA. But when they figured out, now we'll put a bomb Saturday night in the financial district and blow out 10,000 giant plate glass windows.
Yeah.
All of these financial firms, they can't work next week. They can't.
And it's also very interesting, the false flag thing that we talked about. While I was there, it was pretty much every single day that we found a bomb. Did you find a freaking bomb every single day for the last 4 years, and none of those exploded? They try to keep alive the idea of we're under threat and this is going on, when in reality, it's all, and now it was all bullshit.
And remember, if I can't say it enough, you can't fight the war you wish you were in.
Yeah.
You can be an Indian and you wish it was Arapahoes versus Kiowas. And it's, sword or spear and shield versus spear and shield. You wish that was the war you were fighting, but you're not. You're fighting a 4G war. So you have to be really fast at these evolving tactics, because the narrative is going to be every week they're finding another white racist Trump supporter.
Exactly. That's what I was going to be saying. They're going to be finding this white supremacist group was about to kidnap blah blah blah, and they had this plan.
They're going to try to attach Trump supporter, racist,
violence,
terrorist.
Yeah, violence.
That's all going to be a way of damning our side. But
I see that happening. I see that happening very easily. That's something
you won't be able to wear a MAGA hat. If you wear a MAGA hat, you will be beaten on the street. Wearing a MAGA hat will absolutely be more than ever a waving a red cape at a bull. So you're going to have to be low key about that for a while, and we have to think of other symbols, almost like the Christians in early with the fish symbol. And maybe I was thinking maybe you can, for a couple bucks, you can get the magnetic American flag for your car, put it upside down after Biden is elected, or when they pass the Sedition Act that says free speech is dead. If you're talking about the stolen election, you can't. You may not.
Did you hear Biden talk? The man has degraded enormously. He just takes 2 or 3 times the same amount of time like a normal person would to say the exact same thing. He just you just want to go like, spit it out, Biden, for once. He just drags and drags. He cannot speak in public.
China is running our country. It's a total victory by China. We have the most compromised to China person running our country. It's not an accident. I mean, it's definitely not an accident. Some other questions.
Let's get to those.
When do we get a Pinochet? I don't think we get a Pinochet until after we have a Stalin.
Yeah.
Or a Fidel.
First you will have a commie dictator, then you will have a right-wing hard guy that will try to bash through all that crap.
Or this is a big country. I think that, even Yugoslavia, when it broke up, you have Croatia, you have Serbia, you have Slovenia, you have Bosnia. I think that you could have like in my book, Foreign Enemies and Traitors. And by the way, I recommend get our books printed, because very soon you're going to go to Amazon and, certain people might not be there anymore. Okay. So get the printed books.
Yeah, good
idea.
And
I have even a post office box where you can just send like a check.
And guys, I always have the links below in the videos for Matt's website, his books, my books as well. There's always the link under the different links under the box of the video.
Yeah, and in Foreign Enemies and Traitors, it's the blue one where the America is like in an earthquake, all broken into pieces. In one region, you can have a military dictator. In another region, so you can have a Pinochet in one area and a Salvador Allende in another area.
Yeah, you could have
you can have like
a Master J running some part of the.
Yeah, you can have a black nationalist running a one part of one state. So it's hard to generalize, but the only solid advice I can give you is if you live in the nicest house in Connecticut or Vermont, it won't help you when they come to say, here's your 10 illegal aliens, new Americans. And, they're getting the first floor and you're getting the second floor.
Yeah.
And you say, but the kitchen is on the first floor. Well, you can ask them nicely and they'll let you cook there too.
Play nice, get along.
Watch Dr. Zhivago, okay? And then think about your nice house in Connecticut when they say you have too many square feet for one family.
Yeah.
And you think I'm joking. I mean, people.
No, it's real. It's a real thing.
It's real. So it's better to be in an RV in Florida or Texas than in a mansion in Connecticut because they're gunning for you. And there is no guardrail on the left. They never say, you know what, we've gone far enough to the left. Now they have no check on them. There is no check and balance. They're going to go left, left, left. And the more the right resists, they will call us terrorists and use it as an excuse to crack down even more to the left.
And you know what? I also see something, I don't know if you see this or agree with this. I think that they played some of the more conservative Democrats or some of the more classic Democrats. They played this game with BLM thinking that they could, maybe some of them thought that, okay, we could use them to win this one and then we can you don't get rid of these people. These people will continue to be out there. They will not stop just because they, you appease them with a little bit of a carrot.
It's a classic of the person thinking he's using the wolf, but and he thinks the wolf is on a leash. And when the wolf is done with eating his enemies, then he's going to just put the wolf back in the wolf cage.
Yeah.
No. At the end, the wolf turns around and eats the person who thought he was the master.
BLM and Antifa, they are out of the cage, and you're not going to be putting them back.
No. And it will just, as with every right-wing reaction, there will be further to the left, more restrictions, less freedom. Then there's more fighting back until it's just, the CW.
Yeah.
But so somebody said, what are other countries to move to? America is it, okay? Maybe temporarily you could go to Belize or something, or,
I wrote quite a bit. It depends really on what you want. If you want to live in the United States, you won't find any other place like the United States. That's simply the way it is. And lots of people, and this is something I've come across, is they go to some of these places thinking they're going to be enjoying more freedom in Central America. Man, you're not. And they're going to be taking advantage of you. You're going to be losing money. So I never say never in terms of if you want to live somewhere else and give it a try. But more often than not, people are not pleased with what they come across. That's just the way it is.
For somebody said, how can you make money while you're out sailing on your 30-footer? A sailboat to me is not for many people because being on an ocean, sometimes it's like being on a roller coaster in a thunderstorm.
Yeah.
And you can't get off. It's just going around and around, right? And you don't know if the roller coaster is making 10 more trips or 100 more trips, but you can't get off and it's a thunderstorm. So if that idea, and I'm not saying that's all the time, but like sometimes that can happen. If that's a deal breaker, don't get a sailboat because it happens sometimes. Most of the time it's great. Most of the time it's like, riding a little wagon across the field. But sometimes it's a roller coaster in a thunderstorm and you can't get off. That said, if you do the sailboat thing, I think it's smarter than buying land in Belize or somewhere because those countries can change their government in a second.
Yeah.
Or Uncle Sam can tell them, if you don't turn over these American expats that dodged our tax laws and are trying to escape, if you don't turn them over, we're going to cut off your banking access, and they will do anything to keep that.
Maybe in somewhere in Eastern Europe, Czech Republic, Poland is pretty cool lately.
Yes.
The way they've gone very
Eastern
pro
Europe,
militia. Poland
yes.
those guys have gone super pro militia. They don't give a crap anymore. They're ready for the Russians.
Definitely, if America turns into a communist, repressive communist country, the most anti-communist countries will be Eastern European countries.
The people that suffered most recently.
And they will know how important, like the Poles and Hungarians know how important it is to have a safe exile refuge. So if you are escaping from communism in America, I would go to Hungary or Poland for sure. But it's hard to sail to Hungary and Poland.
It's not easy. It's not easy, but eventually when people want to check it out, I was watching a lot of the Poland stuff. The way the military in Poland it talks about their own militia. They have, it's the complete opposite of what you see in the United States. They consider the militia is like, no, you do not mess with our militia. Our militia is essential part of our defense. When the Russians invade, it's going to be the militia that's going to be fighting them. It's
home
not
guard.
Right.
A home guard.
In the United States, they go like, well, you're labeled like a crazy militia. He was a militia, like a
even though it's right in the Second Amendment.
In the Constitution,
it should be like a holy word. It should be like a sanctified word. It's like right in the Second Amendment. Yeah. So, but the question about sailing was how to make money while you're sailing, while you're out doing that Dan Kilmer thing. If you have a skill that's portable, like making canvas with a sewing machine, boats are always, their canvas stuff is always wearing out, not just sails, but all parts of the boat. So something you can do like with a small machine, like a sewing machine, if you're a dentist, if you're a doctor, you always will get work. I knew a long time ago a dentist that did dental surgery using just a scuba bottle to spin the drills, compressed air scuba bottle. And that would save you from having to fly, from the islands back to America because you got a tooth problem. So having a portable skill. We even met people like a lounge piano, like Billy Joel kind of guy on a sailboat. And he can go from, resort to resort and just do a cold audition where your bar is dead and quiet and nobody's there, but there's a piano in the corner. Guy tunes it up and he's like Billy Joel. You have to have something that you can do that's portable, that pays cash. You can't, if you are some kind of a job where you have to get a local license, probably isn't going to work. Yeah. It has to be something where it's cash. And another question has to do with how do you continue to have access to funds? I think barter becomes more and more important. And I don't just mean like, I'll give you 5 eggs for a bushel of corn. It's like, I am a dentist and I will fix your teeth for free, but you're going to mow my lawn for the year.
Yeah.
I mean, trading services like that gets, you can continue getting what you need, but without exchanging dollars, which we may not have, or the dollars could be hyperinflated. The dollars could be like Weimar Germany dollars.
It could be that. You could also go with crypto, which I talked about before, and it's something that I know people are using in lots of these countries where the economy is just worthless. They use crypto in Venezuela and in Africa. That could be something to explore. You have some banking that is international. I don't know for the American guy if it's as easy to get, but it's an option to explore. But crypto is always an option.
I know Gab is more hardened than Parler at this point. Even though Parler grew faster and bigger, Parler was depending on using enemy servers. So now they're screwed.
Yeah.
Gab was cut off from Patreon and every other form of banking like that. Yeah. So I went to the Gab website today. I was going to make a donation or something because I think it's only fair to try to support the engines of freedom at this point. And currently, they will take an electronic check or mail them a paper check or Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Crypto.
Yeah, I'm telling you, and besides, it just went through the roof. It's like $30,000 or whatever. So it's it's an alternative. It's something worth
but
exploring.
people shouldn't be put off by the fact that Bitcoin is 30,000 or 40,000.
Right. You don't have
All
to
that,
buy one full Bitcoin. You don't have to
no,
pay.
it's
You can
just
get $100 or whatever, or 50.
yeah, and what it means is it's increasing in value while the dollar is decreasing in value. There are like 5 times more dollars in circulation now than there were 2 years ago. This has to result in inflation.
No,
Massive
they're
inflation.
pumping it. They're putting it out there, and they're destroying the value because it keeps losing value every passing month. It's worth less. So, and with this, man, if there's something socialists are good at, is destroying economies. They're masters of it. They just keep printing money without any kind of restraint, and they manage to have people lose faith in the economy. So
But this is going to be where it's going to be important to be in a state with favorable rules. So I'm not saying leave America. I'm saying leave the blue states, especially blue cities and states together, because in Florida, we have had an open economy for the last like 6 months. Restaurants are open. I go to restaurants.
yeah,
There's no masks unless you want to wear one. There's nobody dying in the streets. It's fine. And it's not just like, can you eat at a restaurant? It's if your business was closed down in the Northeast and you open the same type of business in Florida, they're not going to hassle you.
right.
They're not going to say one day, oh, you got to put up all this plexiglass. Then the next day you have to eat out. They're just going to let you do your business. And that's just knowing that means that people are moving to places like Florida in the same way that Cubans moved to Florida. They're escaping from socialism and they're
escaping from
inside
California and New York. They're running like California is becoming such a huge mess because they're digging down on that attitude that they have of making everything so hard for people. They're just running out of it.
This is one of the built-in internal conflicts within socialism in America was if California and New York wanted to have crazy socialist policies, you can just leave and go to Florida or Texas or Idaho.
Yeah.
But now that the commies are going to be in charge of the whole government, okay, their concept is it won't make any difference if you move from New York to Florida because we're going to make Florida obey the same rules that they do in California or New York because we're going to have a federal law to cover everything. But I'm telling you, it's still very important to be in a freedom-oriented state. Yeah. Because I think Governor DeSantis will say, no, I don't think so. We're a sanctuary state. We're a freedom sanctuary state. We're not going to.
I completely agree with that.
The mask.
They have, you have some more powers as to resist it. Even though, man, having the federal government against you is going to be a huge pain in the ass. But at least you have a governor that's on your side and not your enemy. But with the economy thing, the problem is that you have one currency for the entire country. So if they tank the dollar, economically, it's going to be hitting everyone somewhat of in the same manner with a purchasing power.
That's when Bitcoin is going to become even more interesting because most people do not have any gold, and you can't currently go to a like an ATM where you stick in a Krugerrand and get out 20 silver bars.
Yeah, it's exactly it. Yeah.
But you can go to an ATM where you put in dollars and you get Bitcoin in your account.
You go with your cell phone, and this is beyond the control. They cannot control it. I go with my cell phone. I agree with someone on a given price, and I pay him right there. I wait for the confirmation, and it's a done deal. I don't have to lose money in that transaction, find someone giving me a fair price. It makes things very interesting.
And if they wreck the dollar, Bitcoin didn't exist in Germany. I remember reading this story where a German minister who was collecting the Sunday collection plate for years and years.
Yeah.
He threw all of the copper pfennigs into an unused bathtub because it wasn't worth hauling to the bank and so forth, right? So he just had like a whole bathtub full of copper pfennigs. And when the hyperinflation happened, and you had to spend, a wheelbarrow full of marks to buy a loaf of bread.
Yeah.
He could buy the loaf of bread for, 20 pfennigs. Right. Because they were still money. Okay.
Yeah. Because of the metal.
But there weren't enough people that had metal.
Yeah.
So really, when the mark hyperinflated, that was it for the economy. But Bitcoin is like a new experiment. And with technology, with smartphones, there's going to be businesses that are just saying, today's hamburger is $400 or 0.002 Bitcoin.
Right.
And you're just going to use your smartphone, and you may even get paid in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And they may say, the federal government may say, it's illegal to trade in Bitcoin. Because this is what they did in the French Revolution.
Yeah.
They came out with a thing called the paper assignat and said, you must take assignats. If you use coins, we're going to guillotine you. But the people were still sneaking coins around.
Yeah.
But a coin could be found on you, then you would lose your head. They wanted you to use this hyperinflated paper currency. But with the Bitcoin and smartphones, it's going to be, can the government even do it?
Yeah. No, so if you do it right.
It might move the economy into Bitcoin.
I think that may be one of the reasons why it's accelerating so much. I mean, it's crazy how much. And when we say Bitcoin, it could be maybe I think Litecoin has an easier transaction, and the fee is not as high. So it may be Litecoin, Ethereum, or a couple others. Bitcoin is like the gold standard of cryptocurrency, and it's the one that's you have other options there as well. But I think this is part of why so many companies are saying, okay, on one hand, we're cheering for our socialist overlords, but at the same time, I'm putting some of my money, because many of the larger companies in the planet are buying into cryptocurrency. I think that they see this coming as well.
And it's not, and if you have an electronic calculator, which everybody has, or even on their phone, or just an electronic calculator, I've been in some Central American and countries and in Mexico, and at the supermarket, they'll have like on a chalkboard what today's rate is.
Oh yeah.
How many pesos for dollar?
Yeah.
And maybe the store across the street is a slightly different exchange rate. So you may shop one place or the other. So there's an arbitrage happening all the time where everybody is very close on the exchange rate, because if you're way off, people will flow away from you to your competition. But you can, for example, pay in dollars and get change in pesos.
Yes.
You can pay in pesos, get change in dollars. Pay in dollars, get change in dollars. The lady at the cash register has a calculator, and she can do this in 3 seconds.
Yeah.
Right? She doesn't care if you're paying in dollars and want change in pesos. And everybody becomes a currency exchange expert. And it will be the exact same with Bitcoin. You're going to be able to pay in Bitcoin and get change in dollars. You're going to be able to pay in Bitcoin and get change in, digital change in Bitcoin. It's going to all be the same thing, because the money will flow to where the value is. The trading will flow to where the value is, and it will flow away from the hyperinflated currency. So
and
the
it's the
Democrats
market
will ruin the dollar, but we'll figure out another way.
It's the market figuring things out. Listen, this exact same thing is what I saw for years in Argentina. Every day you woke up and you listen to the news for the weather, for traffic, and for the price of the dollar versus the local peso. So every day you knew how much different currencies were worth. And that's what you expected when you bought anything or sold anything. And anyone trying to take advantage of you, you were like, dude, today the value is this. The market says that today is this. Now, you kind of haggle a little bit, but usually you have a fixed price. And it's funny because like in Venezuela, you have like the official price of the dollar is, 1 bolivar is like, or like $1 is like 1,000 bolivares officially. Unofficially is 1 million bolivares. And the unofficial price is the real price that people use in the streets. The same thing in Argentina.
The official price is only what the government uses, where they can extort people. Like when they say, when you fly into our country, you must exchange $200 at the official rate. This is a way of putting dollars right into the government's account, because it's at a ridiculous rate. I went into East Berlin in 1980 just on a tour bus. It's a long story, but we could do that. And they made you change Westmark for Eastmark at 1-to-1. Like you had to change 100 Westmark, which was like maybe $60 or something, into 100 Eastmark at 1-to-1, which really was like, should have been like 50-to-1. So
Right,
it's a
right.
way of that they can extort you. But as soon as you're inside of the country, everybody is trying to get you to exchange dollars because there's a negotiation somewhere between the street rate,
Yeah,
which only like friends could give each other, and the official rate, which you only do at the border where you're forced to, where there's a government agent watching you. But the
correct.
guy outside the store, he's like in the middle. So there are all these people trading money.
Yeah,
They're like middlemen of currency
yeah,
and
yeah.
making money on each end of the bargain. And the same thing is going to happen. And it won't only be Bitcoin and other crypto, but it'll be silver too. I mean, gold will be for big things,
Mm.
but nobody's going to say, no, I'm not selling you these car parts for silver,
Yeah.
because everybody will be looking for something with value. And
Yeah.
I also have said for a long time, good quality ammunition, like rifle
Mm.
bullets in the 20 and a little, it's like a fits in your pocket, and now it's worth like $50 or something.
What's
Something
the
you can put in
situation
your
with
pocket.
ammo? Ammo is still very scarce, right? You cannot find it almost. It's still that they is
It's
that the
pretty
deal
scarce.
that
It's still pretty scarce, but the people that have it, usually when you buy a case inside, it's the really cheap stuff is like a bag of bullets inside of a box,
yeah,
like the, but most decent name brand ammo inside the case are packages the size of a cigarette case, about,
little
with
packs with
20.
fighting.
Yeah,
Mm.
and that fits in your pocket. And depending on what the ammo is, it could be worth $20 or $30. And that is going to be currency. I mean, I can tell you, out in Montana, people are going to walk into a hardware store and just be putting
So
that on the counter.
it's a buck around for 223 now.
It depends if you can find it and what people and where you are, and if it's cheap crap or if it's like, Black
Probably.
Hills
Yeah.
77 grain, but people will know from the box.
Mm.
The people in Montana that are going to be using ammunition for currency, they're going to know the value, just like
Mm.
the lady in Mexico knows the exchange rate.
Yeah.
And if you need something, you're going to give ammunition, they're going to give you what you need at the hardware store.
What
The
about guns?
trade
Are
will
they
happen.
still are guns also hard to come by or a lot more expensive? Have you checked prices recently?
It's still very hard to come by, and it's going to be worse because the under the Democrats, they're going to pass a law that makes firearms manufacturers responsible for everything. Like if a car manufacturer makes a car with bad brakes, then yeah, you should sue him. But if
Yeah,
a car manufacturer makes a great car and somebody gets drunk and hits somebody,
it's not their
you don't
fault.
you don't sue Chevrolet,
Right.
right? But that's what they're doing with guns. They're going to make it so that you can sue the gun manufacturer for anybody that does a criminal act with a gun, and this is going
Yeah.
to put the gun manufacturers out of business fast. They did something similar with the airplane manufacturers like Cessna and Piper.
Mm.
They said, even if you have a 25-year-old Cessna and you get drunk and fly it straight into a mountain,
Mm.
and you're the fifth person that owned it,
Still
okay?
your fault.
They still sue Cessna.
Right.
Well, that's why the kit planes are so popular, because you can get around the liability by building a kit plane.
Mm.
But nobody, to buy, most people that want a Cessna, they buy like a 30-year-old Cessna. Very few people buy new ones. They're so exorbitantly expensive. And it'll be the same with guns.
Mm.
The big manufacturers are going to be put out of business the
The
first
used
year.
market, the used market may be huge. The resale
It'll be the
price.
only market.
Mm.
And it will probably be a black market. And
Mm.
then you'll be worried about, ATF sting operations.
Yeah, your
So
neighbor
it's
ratting on you because you
or your
sold up.
neighbor ratting on you. That's right. Yeah, definitely
And
keep it low key. I would take the NRA stickers off the car, and because
yeah,
people are going to be looking to rat out the gun owners.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it was already something that it was not that much of a good idea to have any pro gun stickers, because there's a good chance someone will break into your car to see if you have a car gun, a truck gun, or whatever, just because you have a sticker. But now even more so, because anyone that wants to screw with you will just rat you out and put you in a tough spot.
That's where I've always been a fan of the magnetic stickers, because, like, if
Take it
for a
off.
road trip, you can put it on and lots of people will see it, and
Mhm.
then when you park, you just take it off.
Yeah, that's a good
You know,
idea. Hey man, we've been talking for a couple hours like we usually do. Man, I hope we keep doing it. Like, on weekends streaming live. Hopefully, we'll be able to do that. But if not, we'll find the alternatives. Just the way it is. Just roll with the punches.
What some people who make who aren't doing live, who make podcasts, what they do is they put it up on BitChute like 12 hours or 24 hours before YouTube. So right. the real the super chat fans will seek you out, and that helps build the BitChute audience. Yeah. If you put it on BitChute and YouTube at the same time, almost everybody will just click onto YouTube because it's easy.
I'll try doing it. Well, especially now because I have no idea when the ban will be lifted. I mean, we're recording this right now, and I still do not have access to YouTube. So I'll upload it first to Rumble, to the Modern Survivalist over there. Hopefully, fingers crossed, I won't have any problems like I did last time. Probably a lot of people were already moving over there. That's why the servers or whatever were acting out.
Yeah, so, Gab is. They say Gab says that their business is up 750% in the last week.
That's
and great. They're getting millions of new people a day, so they're having a hard time keeping up. So Gab has just got the circle going around a lot, but in a way, it's a good sign because the market is flocking to freedom.
And the market always does, just like we were talking about with a currency, people using whatever they feel like using. If they want to use gold, if they want to use US dollars in Argentina, that's what they're going to be using. And no matter how much you try to control that, it's the market, acting in its own natural manner. So, people will. It's better if you start, getting ahead of all this and figuring out how is it that I convert? How is it that I use some of this crypto stuff? Even there's people that resisted a lot, but
me.
Yeah, you were one of those.
I also didn't have. Oh, I wanted to mention.
Yeah. This
was sent to me just.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
And these aren't the lightest things, but if you're riding in a vehicle, I have the carriers too, but if you're riding in a vehicle, or if you're just defending a fixed position like your house, my feelings. You can still get shot somewhere else, but if you get shot here, the fight's over right now. So maybe it gives you some more time to do some more good. But,
I think that the more, my philosophy is the more tools you have, the better. You may end up using them or not eventually, but, staying fluid, staying informed and using the different options available whenever stuff pops up, I'm all for it.
I did want to thank these guys at looks like Cat One.
Cat One Armor.
Made in America.
Awesome.
And shelf life 20 years.
Yeah.
But this is uprated for 5.56 M193 at 3,100 feet per second. But it's heavier than the ceramic armor, but it's a little slimmer too, I mean, it's a little bit more low profile, like to wear underneath of clothes, like a plate carrier that's not your outside plate carrier, but inside under your jacket.
Yeah. What is it, like A500? Is it something like that, or?
Yeah, it says the SAPI CQB, but has all the model information.
It has to be like a level 3, 4, level 4, something like that.
3+, so it's not going to stop like 30-06. So it's called 3+, and it's 8 pounds. And the ceramic ones that I have, just for people that they're like this thick.
Yeah.
And they weigh 5 pounds. The ceramic ones.
And they can crack. The ceramic ones can crack. That one not.
Yeah, and after a couple shots in one area, they may not work as good. And but anyway, like Bitcoin, I resisted the hard plates for a long time. But now it's time for the Bitcoin, because you can't have all your eggs in one basket. You need your eggs in lots of baskets.
No, I think I consider it just like that. The crypto, precious metals, actual cash in hand for stuff that you may need it, and try to have as many options as possible. Absolutely.
Yep. All right.
Okay,
good show. We'll see what happens.
Okay, Matt. Hopefully next week we'll just do the regular live stream. But for now, folks, have an awesome one. See you on our next video. Gonna be stopping right now. Take care, folks.